When I started knitting last year, I felt like I was behind on the knitting community lore, so I found myself looking up knitting hot takes videos to play in the background while I was knitting, of course. So in case someone out there feels the same way about the sewing community, I thought I'd make this video on sewing hot takes. So I'm just gonna go through this post on the sewing subreddit and see what posts I agree or disagree with. I would also love to hear your sewing hot takes, so please leave them in the comments down below. But I also wanted to say at the top, please don't let me or anyone in the comments discourage you from sewing the way you want to. Sewing should be an enjoyable hobby, so I fully support you doing whatever you need to do to keep it enjoyable. So this first comment says, making the same pattern over and over again is completely fine. I have 8 summer dresses that are basically the same pattern, and I have a few winter dresses that are very similar. Yes, I totally agree with this one, and I do this all the time. Changing the fabric or even making variations on the same pattern will make a huge difference in your designs, so I totally agree with this one. Okay, the next one says, I hate 5/8 seam allowance in commercial patterns. A 1/2 inch seam allowance is enough, and I don't need fancy gadgets to keep those. I totally agree with this one, and actually all my patterns in my pattern shop use 1/2 inch seam allowance, so yeah, I totally agree. Okay, another comment on fabric choice. They say, fabric choice makes a ton of difference. You can use the same pattern for sweatpants and formal wear by changing the fabric. I totally agree with this one, and I think that's why I have a hard time going to fabric shops. I just feel like I'm not getting the same quality of fabric that a design house would get, or like any industry apparel company would get. And I think that's why I like to start from a thrifted piece of apparel and like rework or alter the garment to be like more of my design. I think also that has to do with, I really like to do athletic wear, athleisure specifically. And so that's why I like to start from a sweatshirt or a hoodie and kind of rework it. I really enjoy the final product a lot more when it's a more thick and durable fabric that I know will last me a long time. Okay, this person says, I mainly sew workwear for my very corporate job, and I wish more indie designers made patterns for professional clothing. And towards the end of their comment, they said, sometimes I feel like 80% of indie patterns are aimed at people who are self-conscious about their midsection and want an outfit in which to wander around a farmer's market at the height of summer. Nothing wrong with that, but it's very opposite of what I need in my wardrobe. I think that comment is so funny. That's so true. Obviously, a lot of these people on Etsy or indie designers are designing kind of mainly for themselves. I know that's kind of true for me too. I think that's pretty interesting, and I think that makes me want to make patterns actually that will work in a professional setting. So I'm gonna have to revisit this comment later, and maybe I'll add something to my Etsy shop inspired by this comment. Okay, this person says 90% of machine issues are because the user doesn't know how to use one. I will die on this hill. I've looked at so many machines that are broken or not working, only to not be able to reproduce the errors at all. Okay, I think this is true for sergers specifically, but my previous serger that I had in college was just, it wouldn't work even with the manual. I would read the manual and it would work for like a project or two, and then the tension would just get out of whack again and it would just be a mess. So this is, I'm sure this is true most of the time, especially when you have a good quality machine. This was like an off-brand machine serger, but also not everyone has a manual to read, which kind of stinks. But I think you can also look up a lot of sewing machine manuals online, and that will give you so much information and resources. And I would actually say that 90% of some people's sewing issues are from the tension. I just feel like tension is one of those things that seems a little bit intimidating to look into and adjust, but it actually can make all the difference. So getting your tension right in the beginning of a project really would be a huge help to a lot of people, I think. But I mean, what do I know? Okay, this person says, $10+ for a pattern that I have to print out myself, tape myself with no variant designs is a ripoff. I don't know how I feel about this one. I hope pattern designers put a lot of work into their designs like I do. Personally, I wouldn't buy a pattern that is $10 with no design variants, but if I needed to buy a pattern that didn't have any design variants, I know myself I could come up with some variants on that pattern, on that design. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes people are buying patterns because they have a design in their mind that they want to recreate, and maybe they want to start from something that they know is like 90% there, and then they'll like alter it to be like 100%. So yeah, I think if it was something very complicated and unique, then yes, that $10 is worth it, even if there's no like variance in the design. But yeah, let me know what you think about this one in the comments. This person says, patterns should have at least 2 pieces in the envelope. I never have the mental strength to cut them off, thinking I will need the other measures. I copy them, very tedious and stressful. Yeah, I think that sounds very stressful. I think that's why I kind of do like the print at home version, because you will have all those sizes if you ever needed to like reprint it again. I know that there is a way to like reuse the tracing paper or the tissue paper patterns without cutting into them, but I just don't like folding it and all that stuff. I don't like messing with that. So I actually would rather cut into that tissue paper pattern. But again, I haven't used a commercial pattern in like at least 10 years. Yeah, I haven't used a commercial pattern in at least 10 years. So I think that's right. I personally like the fact that when you buy a indie designer online and you print it at home, you have kind of the peace of mind that you can come back to that pattern and sew a different size if you need to. Okay, this person says, when you make bias tape, you don't need to fold and iron it. You can just start sewing on it. No need to pin it first. That is crazy. That feels illegal, but I think that would work actually. But it feels wrong. This person says, unless it's top stitching, thread doesn't need to match. It's all a plot by big thread. That also feels illegal. I think sometimes it's just very satisfying to get that color match. I'm not saying that I match my fabric to my thread all the time. This is black thread and this is a navy fabric. So obviously those don't match, but if you're looking at my hem that closely, you need to back up. But yeah, it feels illegal sometimes when I'm not matching them. This person, okay, this one makes me laugh. I hate the word sewist. I think it looks stupid. Stick with seamstress, seamster, sewer, or tailor. Okay, yeah, that one, I do think the word sewist is kind of funny to say, sewist. I say sewer sometimes, and I also say seamstress. I've never heard seamster. And tailor, I think tailor is actually different. Tailor is in a different category in my brain. I don't know if that's like true or if it's just in my brain. When that trend on TikTok that was like, we're blank, of course we'll blank, you know, that kind of trend. I was gonna make one that was like, we're sewists. Of course I don't know what to call myself. And then I was gonna do another one that was like after that one, it was gonna be, I'm a person who owns a sewing machine. Of course I don't. It was gonna be a joke on how I don't like the word sewist, or like I don't really feel comfortable using that word. It feels weird. And I feel like it only popped off in the last couple years actually. So I've usually called myself a sewer or seamstress, but since I've been on the internet, I know that a lot of people use sewist. So I'm trying to also use sewist, but yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about that one. Okay, this person says, I have a decent serger, and due to small space and yes, laziness, I still use zigzag or pinking shears to finish seams. But who's gonna care? I'm a big fan of French seams too. Who makes the rules? We do. Okay, I totally agree with this one. I do have a serger and I love it, but sometimes it's just easier to use pinking shears. Especially depending on like the fabric choice, like a chiffon. Actually on a chiffon, maybe this is my hot take. On a chiffon, I prefer either a rolled hem, even though they're so hard, or a pinked edge with a zigzag stitch. I don't know if that's a hot take. I just feel like overlocking the edge of that chiffon makes the fabric a little heavy and it lays differently than if you were to have it be all like light and airy, if that makes sense. So someone said invisible zippers suck. And I actually disagree with this so much. I love putting in invisible zippers. They are my favorite. So someone commented back and said ironing back the teeth helps immensely. That's true. Other tips, maybe I can make a full video on this, but other tips for putting in invisible zippers is basting it first. Also using an invisible zipper foot that actually catches the zipper teeth, not just one of the ones that like gets your needle closer to that zipper foot, the one that actually catches the teeth itself and keeps it up. That is the best. And also a tip that I learned in college is actually when you're sewing that invisible zipper, don't make your stitches so small. You actually want to make them a little bit wider, because I think when it's so small, there's like so much, I don't know, tension there or something. It's science. I don't know, trust me. In my own experience, you want to make the stitches a little bit wider rather than smaller for an invisible zipper. But yeah, I actually prefer invisible zippers to any other closure. This person said hacks. I don't know why it bugs me. It's just variations, not a revolution. So I think they're talking about when a pattern will have like hacks included and it's just like style variations. My dad is an engineer and my mom is a seamstress, so maybe that's why I really like hack. Like it fits for both sides of my brain. I don't know. This person says, no machine is that hard to thread. Just be patient and learn. It's part of the process. So yes, that is so true. But sometimes a machine really is very hard to thread, especially if it's like an industrial machine. But I still do think you need to learn how to use it. So I think that's something that actually people don't realize when they're starting to sew. You're not just sewing two pieces of fabric together. People who sew, actually, you are a technician for that sewing machine. Like, you are like a mechanic almost, you know? I mean, depending on how thoroughly you get into your machine, but I feel that way sometimes. But yeah, I think you should learn how to use your machine, and reading that manual does help. And like I said, yeah, you can find that manual online if you don't have it, if you got your machine secondhand. Okay, this person says, I never use a muslin to test out a pattern. I just jump right into the real fabric, even if I drew the pattern up myself. It's not gonna look crazy far off, and if it is, I'll fix it and make it look like it was on purpose. A painter once said, art is just making mistakes and finding which ones to keep. Oh no, my dress is short. I guess I'll add a border which will make the bottom longer. An idea I wouldn't have if I tested the pattern beforehand. I love the idea of this, but I myself could never do this. And the reason why is because I find myself making specifically special event dresses lately. So I made a dress for one of my friends, for me to wear to one of my friends' weddings. I made my own wedding dress with my mom's help, and I also made my reception outfit. I find myself a lot of the times in a situation where I will be making a dress that needs to be done by a certain date with a very strict deadline. I don't want to be the person who's like sewing my dress the day of my wedding. Like that gives me so much anxiety. I can't be that person. So for me, I have to test out with a muslin, you know, the first draft of my pattern. Otherwise, if I jump right in, and especially if it's expensive fabric and I like cut the wrong way, oof, I can't do that personally. But if you're just playing around and having fun, like, go for it. But I just do find myself in a situation where I cannot afford to mess up, not just with the time, but also with the cost of fabric. This one's really important. This person says, if you plan on sewing for a long time, like over many years, you have to take care of your body. My mid-back just gave up on me, and it's been a whole summer of physical therapy and injections to get me out of pain. Make sure you have a good chair, get up and stretch, and a foam roller is your best friend. That is so true. You need to take care of your body. It's very important. In this studio, I, for the first time, have a table back there that I can pull the sides up, and I can cut my fabric on the table instead of cutting it on the floor. Cutting fabric on the floor always like gives me such back pain. And I find when I'm sewing also, I notice that like my shoulders are up. There's so much tension up here. So yeah, sewing can be really hard on your body, and definitely take care of yourself. Maybe do other exercises, cross-train for your sewing, just to keep yourself in check, because it's really sad to see like someone not be able to enjoy this hobby that they like so much because it's just tough on your body. Yeah, it kind of makes me sad. That's a bummer one. Okay, this person says, I literally never pre-wash my fabric and I've never had an issue. Throwing 2 yards of off the bolt fabric in the washer dryer sounds like a messy ass nightmare to me. Okay, this one I agree with and I disagree with. So for natural fiber fabrics, such as linen and cotton, you need to pre-wash it. And I used to not pre-wash my fabrics when I was younger, and I would be so bummed. Like specifically, there are these linen pants that I made, and I lined them with a polyester fabric, but the shell fabric itself was linen, and then I washed them, and then the linen shrunk, and then the lining was sticking out, and that makes me so sad. So yeah, you have to wash your natural fibers for sure. But I will say, for the special occasion fabrics that I was just talking about, the special, like my wedding dress and the dress that I made for my friends to wear to my friend's wedding, I didn't wash those. But also, like, I'm not planning on watching those types of dresses, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna wear them for the event, and maybe I'll wear them for like another occasion, but like, I'm not gonna wash them. Maybe that means I'm stinky. I think if I were to wash them, they'd be like a dry cleaner situation, you know? And I don't think that they would shrink at the dry cleaner. I hope not. I guess moral of the story is please wash your natural fibers, because it's such a bummer if they shrink, and especially if you put in like an artificial fabric lining. Ugh, it's so sad. This person says, if you're a hobby sewist, any machine over $300 is unnecessary. My $100 brother has been with me for 12 years and still works great. Okay, this one I totally agree with. I think the best sewing machine is the one that you can get from someone in your family, from a friend. If you want to start sewing, I hope you just find someone who will just give you a sewing machine, because that's the best way to like obtain one. Because then you can find out if you really like it, if you want to spend more money on a machine. But yeah, I like this comment, even though I do have some machines that are more expensive than that. This person says, it's not the tension, it's you. I don't know, I disagree. I think sometimes it is the tension. But then someone commented back and said, I do have a lot of tension, and that's true too. Okay, this person says, a self-drafted pattern in quality fabric that fits you well and is relatively simple is better than a complicated commercial pattern that does not fit or flatter you. Quite a lot of issues people seem to have come from not their sewing skills, but rather their fitting skills and skills in picking a pattern that does not work for them. We've all been there. I totally agree. Although, I don't know. I mean, I don't see other people's issues, so I don't know. I think it is such a game changer when a pattern making book has like the section that's about fitting, specifically fit issues. If you're thumbing through like a pattern making book, see if they have that section in there for you that'll talk about, oh, if there's wrinkles in this area, you need to adjust this, and so on and so forth. That will really help you. Okay, my camera is dying, so I'm gonna try to find one to end on. French seams are tedious and annoying, and you may quote me on that. I disagree with this one. I love French seams. They're so satisfying. This person says, I hate hemming. I hate it. I leave raw edges as much as possible. I kind of agree with this one. Sometimes hemming is the last thing that I want to do. This person says they leave raw edges though, and I can't do that. I have to have it hemmed, but maybe I'll just come back the next day and do it. Maybe this will be the one I end on. But it says, hand sewing is fun, pleasant, and enjoyable. Machine sewing is loud, uncomfortable, and noisy. I actually have to agree with this one. Younger me would disagree so hard, but the me now, I totally agree. Hand sewing sometimes is just so satisfying. It kind of scratches the same part of my brain that I use when I'm knitting. It's just like super soothing and relaxing. I don't know. And like a machine is loud. And again, when I'm using my machine, I feel like my shoulders are up to here. So yeah, I think hand sewing is fun. I can't do hand sewing for an entire project though. I don't have the patience. This video is super fun. Let me know if I should do a part 2, because there's actually more on this Reddit thread, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.